you everyone for joining us today. My name is Mike. I'll be serving as moderator for today's webinar. For those of you that logged on in the last minute, we'd like to welcome you. Oh, we're just doing a little test in there to make sure everything works. I'd like to welcome you to today's session on disaster recovery. The specific title of the webinar, Disaster Recovery the StorTrends Way. Next slide, please. So a quick overview of today's agenda. I'll provide a little bit of information on American megatrends as a company. We'll introduce you to our StorTrends line of data storage solutions. And then I'll turn it over to today's presenter, James Dykowski, for the content related to DR. It will include some slides and then a demo of some of the DR type of functionality within the Managed Trends software GUI, which is a feature of all of our data storage solutions. Okay, roll on, please. So just a little bit of information for those of you that are unfamiliar with American Megatrends, or AMI. We've been in business for over 27 years. You may have heard of us through our BIOS product division. In fact, more than half of the computers that are shipped in the world today feature the AMI BIOS solution. We have a worldwide presence, over 1,000 employees, headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia, in Norcross specifically, with offices across the globe, Munich, Germany, India, Taiwan, etc. We've been primarily an OEM company throughout our history. We're also in storage. We sell the StorTrends product line exclusively through the channel. Next slide. So the next slide provides a little bit of additional detail on the various lines of business within AMI. Again, we've been an OEM company for most of our history. Our product lines include the BIOS division, as I previously mentioned, Mega Rack, Remote Control, Remote Systems Management division. We have a kind of foundational experience in storage with RAID. We developed a RAID card that was sold to LSI Logic in 2001. That Mega RAID card is ubiquitous now, featured in a lot of different systems worldwide. And then, of course, we offer the StorTrends product line, the subject of today's presentation. Next slide. A little bit of information on StorTrends. We have over 70 patents associated with our product line. We provide both single and controller units. The next slide contains a table that shows the different products within the line of business. If you'd like to toggle through to that, please. We offer both NAS and SAN solutions, again, single and dual controller. Today's conversation, specific to DR, we're drawing on the 3400i dual controller iSCSI SAN. So we'll be speaking primarily to technology related to that system today, although there is overlap with other systems. Again, we'll provide this deck for everybody that's registered, and you can certainly learn more information about the different products on our website, www.stortrends.com. Okay, next slide. The next slide, when it loads, talks a little bit about our customer base in storage. We have experience across a number of vertical markets, everything from retail. Walgreens, for instance, is one of our larger customers, to education, both K-12 and higher education, state and local government, financial, legal. So we understand the business and organizational drivers in a number of different industries and are happy to leverage that experience on your behalf. Okay, that's enough of the introduction stuff. We'll toggle through to the next slide, and while that's loading, I'll introduce today's speaker. James Dykowski is AMI's most senior storage solution architect. He's been with the company for a number of years, is intimately involved in the development of our StorTrends products, provides and develops solutions for the majority of our customers here in the United States, He's developed a number of thought leadership papers, has spoke at events across the country. You're in very good hands with James. He knows his stuff. He's going to run through the remainder of the slide deck and then toggle over to the GUI. After the GUI demonstration is done, I'll pop back in to lead the Q&A. Again, if you have a question, please submit that through the WebEx question tool. We'll go ahead and collect those up and then present them during the Q&A. And then we'll get you out of here and let you get on with your Friday afternoon. James, I turn it over to you.
Hi, everybody. I hope everybody's doing okay today. As you've obviously been looking at for the last minute or so, StorTrends covers all of today's business requirements, from virtualization, a very simplified management, which we'll see in a little bit, including business continuity, storage efficiency, and backup recovery. But today what we're going to discuss is the disaster recovery piece that we provide to our end users. To begin with, just a quick overview of the business continuity that the dual controller SAN brings. We can also pair up two single controller units to provide complete redundancy as well. Our high availability, it provides maximum I/O performance. You can configure this either in an active-active or an active-passive mode. And then we also provide zero downtime for, of course, any failures. It'll automatically fail over to the other controller, as well as seamless online update support if there was maybe new features or something like that that we're providing to all of our customers. Our monitoring, our store rate support, all of these things are included into the software. And they're very intuitive for the end user to utilize and see through the Managed Trends GUI. Here we have snapshots. So this is the root of our disaster recovery solution. And basically we'll start at this level. And what we do is we take snapshots of points in time. We'll replicate these over to secondary sites. So now you have an exact copy of that point in time over on a separate location, just in case there is a disaster that comes. Snapshots, individually listed here, it's very simple, very easy to manage. You can see in the retrospect window in the right side. You simply select through which snapshot you'd like to get to at that point in time, listed within the snap name. And if that's where you want to be, you review it. You can, while IO's live and active, you can actually log into the volume through that snapshot and see if that's where you want to be. If that is, simply log out of the volume, roll it back, and you'll be up and running in no time. That basically covers the timestamp, time shifting technology. We do allow for multiple schedule levels. So say you kept 20 for the last hour every 5 minutes, you would have that available to you, and they would roll through over the last hour, as well as keeping maybe 1 an hour for the last 6 hours or 12 hours. And then you could do daily levels as well as weekly or monthly, whatever you may need. And then, of course, this easily interlocks into our Snap Assist replication feature. So here's disaster recovery at an overview. You can see here you have site A. This is in a mirrored solution HA configuration. Site B could be a dual controller single bridge bay unit. Site C is just a 2U, just a single small site. Maybe it's not completely needed to be up at all times. And now all the green arrows are showing the snaps being replicated over the WAN to this DR site. And we'll say here that we have an SBB dual controller unit. That could also be a single controller unit to try to save costs. All of the time pieces there. So what we allow for in our disaster recovery solution is the WDS, the Wide Area Data Services. This allows the user to optimize through WAN optimization. You can compress the data at multiple levels, low, medium, or high. Deduplication is also within the packets here, and then also encryption if that's required. This absolutely reduces all of your TCO through basically being able to have one simplified place to go to, and the dual controller units, of course, reduce your costs, the overhead of having multiple dual-purpose disks, redundant power supplies, and all that kind of stuff. Managed Trends is very simple to manage the snap-assisted replication pairs. And then, of course, by optimizing your WAN, compressing, deduping, and making sure that all your data gets to that secondary side as fast as possible, we absolutely reduce your recovery point objective on that secondary side. This next slide shows what it takes for a 585 meg file. We basically had two data sets there, that's why they're two files, within two separate snapshots. They were replicated from our corporate headquarters here in Atlanta to India. Based on the use of a T1 line, obviously if you have more bandwidth it changes your numbers. That took 2.5 hours without any WAN optimization at all. With WAN optimization, compression, deduplication enabled, that was reduced down to 25 minutes, increasing your recovery point objective on the secondary side. Because any time within that span, that is your window of vulnerability. If there was a disaster at any point in there, you would absolutely lose that data. And that you can actually see that within the second bullet point here. Down below is this is an overview picture of basically how a failover would occur. What we'll do is we'll view this within the demo also to show it. You can see the primary system here with its multiple volumes, and then it replicates all the data down. So now you have the delta snapshots within the volume on the secondary side. If that primary does fail, you simply fail over, and what it'll do is automatically mount the secondary snapshots for you to the latest point that's available. Okay, one other thing that, one of our latest features, and this is supported in our dual controller unit only, is data archival with data deduplication. This greatly gives you a lot of space savings for duplicate data that might be on your, within your initiators and stuff like that. So we simply, utilizing our WAN optimization, instead of deduplicating and then undeduplicating at the secondary side, we actually just store it on the secondary side, duplicated, saving all of that space of redundant data. Okay. And manage trends are our software interface here. You can see here we have all these SRM charts available. We can see the space utilization. Workflow management is a very important piece, so it actually, we record what the load is on the system at a given point in time, and we'll actually hold off on doing background functions such as information lifecycle management, container space management, and then we can also, as we'll see later, that we can actually not do replication during your peak hours as well. And just a little more on managed trends, we can also see the I/O performance on the volumes itself, on the primary volumes. And what this does for DR is it actually helps you, you can see what you'll need on that secondary side to handle your everyday I/O. This will help you evaluate what initiators you might need, as well as performance, high performance, low performance size disks and stuff like that. And now what we have is basically the GUI demo side, and then we'll run into Q&A after this. Okay. So we have I've logged into Initiator within the local lab here, and I have two ITX units. Basically, we have our local SAN here, and then we have a remote SAN right here. And what we'll do is use that remote SAN to replicate all the snapshots too. Okay. And so now we're logging into the Managed Trends GUI. What it opens up to is our storage information page, giving you an overview of basically how the storage pools are configured, how much space is available, and how the SAN volumes are set up for here. And you can see these have two 30-minute snapshot schedules set. And we can dive down deeper into that as we go forward. Here we're going to look at just the left-hand tree. Obviously, in the Intro to 3400 webinar, we show in more detail how the Managed Trends interface works and acts, looking at the hardware health and everything else available to it. We'll select here at the V0 just to show the volume at its core level, what we show in management. You can see here this is completely filled up. I believe it has a virtual machine on it or something like that. Redirect on right, this is the same sort of snapshots we take as well. We do support thin provisioning, so if that is a requirement, we have that available. Down here at the bottom, we have our snapshot scheduling, as I was speaking about before. You can see here we have 30 minutes, keeping 5, so the last 2.5 hours. We can actually enable as many levels as we'd like within the StorTrends unit, and of which it'll replicate all of these snapshots over to the DR unit if that's what's necessary. Within the volume, we have our snapshots page. So here you can see we have the 5 total snapshots, and they're listed here with default names. You can see leveling and all sorts of numerical values based on where it's at within the system. Okay. And going forward, what we're going to do is click on the replication, and we're going to configure a SAR, Snap-Assisted Replication pair, between this unit and the secondary unit. So we can see here on the secondary, and just like we support bidirectional replication, this is an active unit. This is running other I/O. It has other volumes, use space, etc. So what we'll use it as a disaster recovery point for, we'll call this Atlanta, and we can call this New York. Here we have Snap Assisted. We'll put in the IP address for the other unit, which you can see here it's actually 101.31. ITX-admin and password are the default credentials for this unit. Okay, we have our primary pool, SP0, and on the secondary we had a C0 is the name of there. So we'll select V0. We can also select V1 if we want to, and what this does is forms a consistency group between the two. These are different size volumes. You can see 134 gigs, not a very standard size, and there is no duplicate volume on that secondary side. Here we actually have matching 500 gig volumes on that unit, so it's actually requesting if we want to use one of those to replicate, which will actually create our own new volumes for these. Here we have just default names, secondary replication V0, and then secondary replication V1 will automatically create the target, and then of course we can we'll select thin provisioning for this just to show. And here on the primary side, it's actually exact provision volumes. So now what it's doing is, if it had to create a storage pool even, it would go to that level. Here it's already created, so what we'll do is now name the consistency group. So we'll call it CG0. Select the virtual IP, so we can select this, or if we wanted to go through a private network, of which the other unit's not connected to, but we could select that as well explicitly. Now, maximum snapshots on the secondary per volume. So what we have here, on this side, we have 5, we're keeping the last 2.5 hours worth of snapshots. Here we have the option of keeping 15 or 30. So what that would do is keep if we had 30, we would keep the last 15 hours worth because they're 30-minute snapshots. This can be done obviously within the leveling, so it can be done on a daily, hourly basis, whatever the customer may need. Here, SAR archival mode, all you do is simply select this, and it automatically selects block deduplication, and we do support compression if that's required as well. We'll unselect it for this test so that we can make sure we see everything on the secondary side simply. Wide area data services. So this is where everything's created here. You can see we have multiple default settings depending on the bandwidth that you have on your site. Or if it's like here, we have 9 megabits specifically, so the number of T1 lines combined together. And now bandwidth utilization, by default we have 100. If that is a dedicated link, that'll be fine. This is not, so we'll use 90% of that. And one thing that this does is it absolutely loads up, it optimizes the bandwidth that it has made available to it. Okay, we can check this. We can check encryption if we want to. We can check compression if we want to. And then select our level, select medium. We can select next. Review anything. If anything needs to be enabled, if we wanted to enable encryption, we would just select previous and go back to it. we can see that the IPs are correct, and these are the volumes that we plan on replicating over to that secondary side. We'll select Finish. What it'll do is automatically basically configure our Snap Assisted Replication agent within the unit to start mounting, deduplicating, compressing all of these snapshots to send over to that secondary side. So now you can see it automatically updated the status to active. It has mounted the latest snapshot, which is T586. And since this is a consistency group, what it'll do is replicate both snapshots at the same time to ensure that they are completely up to date in case of a failover. So say this is a log and a data volume for an Exchange server, something like that. They will always be in sync on that DR site. Here, if we wanted to change the snapshot schedule, we'd be able to do that. It's just as simple as the volume level. And here we see the overview of the WDS settings that we have, and then we can also set a plus here, and we can actually see the bandwidth optimized, and if there was any data reduction to be seen, we'd see that right there. Okay, and here you can see completed size, and it actually will start updating and start sending the replication pairs snapshots. Periodicity. So what happens is some people don't want to send data during the day. It'll hose the system, or I'm sorry, not the system, but the bandwidth for the network. If we did the 90% of our 9 megabit going out to, say, Fremont, California, where our another AMI location is, it would absolutely disable anybody's functionality for Google or whatever somebody might be doing across the network. So we can set periodicity. So right now it's set for all day, every day. We can simply select Edit, and we can change the dates and the times that we want to send data across the WAN. So we could set specific days, just Monday through Friday, or the inverse and just do on the weekend if you have weekly or nightly snapshots that you want to send over a specific period of time. This can also be done on levels, so you can also do during the evenings of Monday through Friday, and then all day, every day for Saturday and Sunday, just in case there's more data or something like that throughout the week and it needs to play catch up. Okay, and now what we can do is we see that the first snapshot has been completely sent, so we can check this V1 on the secondary side, and once this finishes replicating, we'll actually have our data on this. So we are on the right side. We can refresh the view over here. Oh, I need to log into this unit. For security, we time out after a certain amount of time to make sure that everything's all right. Okay, and you can see our secondary replication V0 and V1 are created here on the secondary side. We don't have any snapshots as of right now. It's still replicating them. Okay. And what we have is the replication pair down here. So we'll select C0, CG0 down at the bottom. You can see all the settings are enabled. You can see the primary is the 101.14, and this is the secondary unit. And all the values you can see are set. And now what I wanted to show was basically a failover procedure. All you simply do is log into your secondary site. If you have VPN over to it, you could simply just log into it from wherever you're at that location and select failover. And what it'll do is ask you, are you sure that this is what you want to do? Obviously, if it was really failed, there would be no connection to the secondary side. We wouldn't worry about any form of interconnectivity between the primary initiator and the secondary initiator being a duplicate volume and stuff like that. And one thing, we won't proceed because we have to wait for the snapshot to be sent, of which it's still continuing to send. It was 133 gigabytes, so. That sums up our demo portion of this webinar.
All right. Thank you, James. Appreciate it. Let's see. We did have a few questions that came in during the course of the presentation. So if you could give me a minute to collect those up. I will go ahead and read those back to you. Of course, for those of you that did send in questions, please understand that these will be anonymous. We'll leave your name out of it. Okay, 1 second. Looks like I do have a few. I'm just going to read these verbatim. If for some reason, for those of you that did ask the question, if I didn't get it right, please send the host a note and we'll go ahead and add a clarification or correction. All right, first question, James. I'm looking to replicate from 2 office sites back to my HQ. Does StorTrends support multi-to-one replication?
Okay, yes, and absolutely. Any of our units, single controller or dual controller, can replicate to each other in all sorts of different modes. So, for instance, if you had locations in Atlanta, New York, and Chicago, you could actually have a dual controller unit replicating to New York's single controller unit, and then you could replicate from New York to Chicago, Chicago back to Atlanta with ease with the StorTrends GUI.
Okay, thank you. For the person that asked that question, if you need further clarification, please let me know. Second question. You've talked a lot about wide area data service in the webinar presentation today. I'm paraphrasing a bit here. Can you explain how that feature saves organizations money?
Okay, yes. There are a couple different scenarios where it saves money depending on basically how you have your disaster recovery configured. Say you're in a data center. What that can do is actually reduce the total amount of bandwidth required with dedupe and compression. So now you're not paying for all that additional bandwidth that you need to send data across, while also trying to maintain the recovery point objective that you want to on your DR site. If you have just a regular, like what we have as many offices all over the globe, we can basically reduce the amount of bandwidth needed on a month-to-month basis. So we have 9 megabits coming out of our corporate headquarters here. We have a different level, 6 megabits coming out of Fremont, California, say. Obviously, we're just going to use that 6 megabits worth of bandwidth. Say we have requirements for 12 megabits with other vendors, or just to carry as much data as would normally be sent through TCP. Well, with WAN optimization and by reducing the data sent, we can actually keep that bandwidth down to the 6 megabits on the DR site because we're reducing the data so much.
Okay. Great. Thanks, James. All right, let me see. Next questions. Got a couple more. Good stuff. You mentioned that snapshots are the key to good replication. All vendors talk about snapshots. Can you explain why they are so important and sort of the difference maybe in the way StorTrends does them? Okay, yes. So to start with, the redirect on write capabilities that we do with our snapshots, so what this does is it actually just puts a pointer in time on the disk that takes milliseconds to have. Some of the other vendors do copy on write. Some call them cow snapshots. What this does is it actually takes those changes and moves them to a separate location within the disk. That absolutely increases overhead that your disks are having to perform, which takes away from the incoming I/O that your company will be requesting from the unit. And then also for the replication piece of our snapshots, we don't change this data, we don't mount it, well, we do mount it, but we don't move the data like copy on write to replicate either. So that's another overhead that some other vendors may have that we do not have. Also, the multi-level scheduling, like I said before, what this does is it allows you to have an efficient way of maintaining what you need to maintain. So if somebody deletes a file within the last hour, we can roll back to a 5-minute granularity, while that evening when you're wanting to replicate data, you're only keeping the last hour's worth of changes within 5 minutes. So now what it'll do is replicate the hourly or the daily snapshot rather than those little changes throughout the day, also
adding to efficiency within the bandwidth, which could be noted with the question before. And of course, the availability of making this custom to your environment is probably the most important piece. And that's all I have for that, Mike.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, 2 more questions, it looks like. Can the 3400i unit, the dual controller SAN we've been talking about today, can that be replicated into the cloud for DR protection by the cloud?
Okay. Yes, absolutely. We have vendors that that source out their units as DR targets for smaller companies, companies that don't want to use, they don't want to pay for a rack within a data center, which is very costly, and there's a lot of considerations to doing that. Plus, you also have to buy the servers, the hardware of storage, and all those kinds of things. They'll actually, these vendors will actually sell you space on that secondary side and provide a target for you to replicate to keep all your data safe.
Thank you. Okay, and this looks like today's last question, so we'll be able to get everybody out of here with plenty of time to spare. My existing SAN ties up bandwidth during replication and degrades the performance of the storage. Does StorTrends replication prevent this? If so, how? And again, that's a bit of a paraphrase.
Correct. So StorTrends replication, the way we work doesn't really prevent this. It's more of the base layer of which I was saying before with the snapshots. Degrading the performance of the storage, most likely that vendor has a copy on write snapshot, or they require copying that snapshot to a separate location on the disk and then to replicate that data. And for some reason they have to do that to maintain incoming I/O and all that sorts of stuff. When it comes to tying up the bandwidth, the periodicity feature that we have absolutely covers this. That would be part of StorTrends replication handling this, in that you can set this periodicity to only replicate at night or over the weekends. And then another note, so I set my replication to 90% during the demo. You could also have this change to 50% or even 20% throughout the day to make sure that you're continually replicating data while not tying up the bandwidth that's going outside of your office there. So that should answer that question. There were kind of 2 separate parts there, but that sums me up, Mike.
Okay, great. I'll do a final call for questions. We'll give it a couple of seconds to see if we get any others. Again, you can submit them through the WebEx tool. Of course, while we're waiting for final questions, we will make the recording available to everybody today. You can have that to pass around to any others in your organization that might be interested in the topic. And we're certainly willing to schedule a one-on-one with any interested party. Be happy to get on the phone to give you a more detailed demonstration of the product, to talk about topics like DR, virtualization, how we handle that, tiered storage. Really, we can address any topic, and we're happy to make time if you have the interest. Okay, James, it doesn't look like we've received any other questions, so why don't we go ahead and end the session for today. Thank you, everybody, for taking time out of your Friday afternoon. We do appreciate it. Everybody, have a great weekend, and James, thank you very much for taking time to deliver the presentation. We'll end the webinar right now. Thank you.